Welcome to the Saturday Morning Breakfast Mix, where we highlight the highs and lows of a particular Saturday morning cartoon and maybe some weekday ones that I, as well as many of us, grew up with, and to show why these awesome Saturday morning cartoons made weekends and weekdays just the best, and why seeing them now instantly brings back glorious memories of those carefree childhood days. Between time and space exists a great evil that wishes nothing more than to rule everything within his reach. An extremely powerful wizard that wants nothing more than to rule over the world of the living. Calling out various apparitions and specters from various periods of time, this ghostly apparition leads an army of the undead to do his bidding. Standing in his way are a group of unlikely heroes who have dedicated themselves to rid of this evil entity, not just in their city, but travel through the past and future in order to preserve the peace for all mankind. For when ghouls and ghosts exist and are hell-bent in making your life a living nightmare, who else are you gonna call? This is their story. Ghostbusters, later called Filmation's Ghostbusters, is a 1986 animated television series created by Filmation and distributed by Tribune Entertainment based on Filmation's 1975 live-action television show, The Ghostbusters. As I explained in my Real Ghostbusters episode, this is an entirely separate entity from the Columbia Pictures Sony Entertainment's Ghostbusters media and movie franchise. There was a time when Filmation ruled the Saturday morning airwaves during the late 60s and throughout the 1970s with what seemed to be a never-ending variety of animated offerings. The New Adventures of Superman, Tarzan, the Lord of the Apes, Flash Gordon, and the various shows based on the Archie comic books and characters that made Filmation a very popular cartoon company, second only to Hanna-Barbera. It was in 1975 when Filmation moved into live-action television with shows like Shazam and The Secret of Isis that the Ghostbusters would be introduced on CBS Saturday morning programming. The live-action show originally aired on September 6th through December 13th of 1975 on CBS and lasted for one season and produced 15 episodes. The Ghostbusters starred F-Troop veterans Forrest Tucker and Larry Storch, as well as Bob Burns, known for his work with and collection of movie props and horror and science fiction movies in a gorilla suit. As with their animated shows, producers Lou Scheimer and Norm Prescott made the show fast and on the cheap, and even with that, the series proved to be something of a modest hit. Fast forward to 1984, when Columbia Pictures was preparing its would-be phenomenally successful blockbuster, that a certain discovery occurred. It was discovered that during the filming of Ivan Reitman's Ghostbusters, that Filmation owned the rights to the Ghostbusters name, and unless they would come up with a deal to the rights to their title, Filmation could sue and ultimately close down the $30 million budgeted project. Since the name had popped up all through the script, on signs during shooting, and Ivan Reitman's determination for using the Ghostbusters name, Columbia Pictures, now Sony Entertainment, had no other choice than to license the Ghostbusters name for their movie. Columbia Pictures picked up the rights to the title in exchange for $500,000 and 1% of the profits of the film. At first, it seemed like a great deal, but what Filmation seemed to overlook was that the 1% of the film's profits they would collect was not of the gross profits, all of the money earned by the film minus production costs, but of the net profits, which was the money earned after anything and everything that can be claimed as an expense. Through their accounting, Columbia Pictures used this as proof that Ivan Reitman's Ghostbusters was as a financial loss and a commercial flop at the box office, despite its massive success and overwhelming popularity, leaving Filmation from getting the money that was promised to them. With the movie clearly becoming a global box office success, Filmation's Lou Scheimer understandably felt that it was in the running to produce an eventual animated spin-off and approached Columbia Pictures about producing a Ghostbusters cartoon show based on the film. Columbia informed Filmation, however, that an animated show would not be in the forthcoming because they wanted to concentrate on a future sequel, but as some would say was an unfair move on the side of Columbia Pictures, they pitched Filmation's idea of the Ghostbusters cartoon show to Deke Entertainment. Filmation, quite justly as the owners of the trademark and concept, went ahead and developed a show based on their original 1975 series. This time going the animated route and basing the characters on the supposed children of the original stars. Deke, on the other hand, further distanced themselves by Filmation's attempt by calling the show the real Ghostbusters, forever clearing up any doubt on any of Filmation's attempts to whom the actual Ghostbusters were. The Filmation series follows the adventures of Jake Kong Jr. and Eddie Spencer Jr., who are the sons of the original Ghostbusters from the live-action series of the same name. Accompanied by one of the group's original members, Tracy the Gorilla, the Ghostbusters dedicate themselves to ridding the world of the evil ghost wizard, Prime Evil, and his cast of henchmen from taking over the world. This animated series ran from September 8th to December 5th of 1986 in daytime syndication and produced 65 episodes. The series is technically called simply Ghostbusters, but home video releases use the name Filmation's Ghostbusters to avoid confusion. The episode begins with the villainous Prime Evil wandering through time and space for a place to build his center of command and eventually finds himself in the year 1986 and begins his plans to rule over the world of the living. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of New York, Eddie Spencer Jr. and Jake Kong Jr. are being taught how to be Ghostbusters in an abandoned mine by their fathers, Eddie Spencer and Jake Kong, the original Ghostbusters. It is during this that Jake's nose begins to twitch, meaning there is a ghost nearby. The Ghostbusters in training are then confronted by Scare Stiff, who is driving a rail cart and heading in the direction of our heroes. Jake Kong Sr., realizing that the foreman of the tunnels was right and that the mines were indeed haunted, sees this as a perfect opportunity to put their training into use and instructs both Eddie and Jake to try and get rid of him with the Ghost Dematerializer. But the two are hesitant and frightened at first, making them miss their target both with the Ghost Dematerializer and Ghost Gummer. Seeing that their sons have not yet gotten the grasp of being Ghostbusters and conquering their fears, Jake Kong Sr. ends up stopping Scare Stiff by throwing a nearby rail in the path of the incoming cart, knocking the robot ghost into a nearby wall, leaving him vulnerable for the Ghost Dematerializer. After yet again failing to rid Scared Stiff by themselves, Jake Sr. lends a hand to the boys and dematerializes their unwanted guest. Feeling that they messed up, both Jake and Eddie Jr. don't feel like they can ever live up to their father's legacy, but are soon reassured by Eddie Spencer Sr. that they will both grow up to be great Ghostbusters, and that it took them many years before they themselves were able to master their skills in ghostbusting. It is after this that the Ghostbusters, both new and old, are confronted by Prime Evil, who ensures that Scared Stiff will be the last ghost they will ever bust. Thinking that Prime Evil is just a run-of-the-mill apparition, Eddie Spencer tries to dematerialize him. However, he is shocked to discover that it doesn't work, leaving our heroes to run for their lives. As Prime Evil chases the four Ghostbusters, our heroes devise a plan to lure the evil ghost into a nearby vault and are successful. Once shut, Prime Evil is trapped in the vault, and the four Ghostbusters decide to seal the mine so that he will never get out. As time passes, about 100 years to be exact, Prime Evil has been spending his time in the vault with his only companion, an annoying ghost named Ratarat, who has done nothing but get on his nerves since his entrapment. Eventually, the two of them manage to escape by tricking a gullible young bat named Belfry into thinking that Prime Evil was a bat himself and that he wanted nothing but to be let out of the vault and play with him. Belfry, thinking that this was his chance to finally have a real friend of his own, opened the vault but instantly was blown away and hid in terror upon realizing what he had done. Feeling responsible, Belfry follows Prime Evil, stowing away secretly into his scareway to hopefully find a way to stop him, and soon discovers his plan: to gather himself ghosts to do his bidding, build a headquarters, or in this case a haunt quarters, to devise his plans, and finally travel 100 years into the past to get revenge on those that trapped him in the vault in the first place, the Ghostbusters. Meanwhile, back in 1986 New York, Jake and Eddie Jr. are introduced to the inhabitants of Ghost Command. Ansibone, the Ghost Command's talking skull phone, who will usually make it hard for them to answer the phone by giving the caller a sarcastic message. Skelevision, the Ghost Command's talking skeleton television, who often shows the Ghostbusters the problem they will have to face. Shock Clock, their talking cuckoo clock. And finally, Tracy the Gorilla, one of the original Ghostbuster members who is extremely smart and is credited with inventing all of the Ghostbusters gadgets. At first, Eddie is frightened by Tracy, but after an apology, the two become best of friends. Meanwhile, at Prime Evil's haunt quarters located in the 5th dimension, the villainous Spectre meets together with various other ghosts to set his plans in motion. Fangster, Werewolf of the Future. Mystera, Mistress of Mist, who has the power over mist and also known for her extreme vanity. Captain Long John Scarecrow, the self-proclaimed Sailor of the 7 Galaxies. Sir Transalot, a bad knight to one and all. A skeleton knight who rides a skeletal horse named Frightmare and wields the trance-lance that fires beams that induce sleep. Apparitia, Spirit Sorceress Supreme, a ghostly sorceress who, like her name implies, she can conjure up all sorts of apparitions. The Haunter, civilized hunter of haunted prey, who hunts down not animals but living human beings. Floatsart, musical maestro of fright, a ghost who uses music-themed powers to do his bidding. And finally, Scared Stiff, a robotic skeleton with a knack for falling apart. Welcoming his guest, Prime Evil explains that before they can rule over the world of mortals, they must first eliminate the main threats that stand in their way, the Ghostbusters. That night at Ghost Command headquarters, Mystera and Floatsart kidnap Jake Kong Sr. and Eddie Spencer Sr. with the help of Floatsart's haunting melody. That morning, Jake Jr. is greeted by local TV reporter Jessica Ray, who is there to prove to the world that ghosts do not exist, and makes a wager with Jake that if he can dematerialize a ghost live on television, that she will agree that ghosts indeed exist and that the Ghostbusters are indeed legit. But if they cannot, Jake will have to admit to the world that ghosts are not real. Once gone, Jake sees Eddie watching the Skelevision and believes to be watching a horror movie about ghosts taking over the future and freezing people in their tracks. but soon realize that what they are watching is no movie, but that the Skelevision is projecting what is actually happening in the future. Jumping into action, the junior Ghostbusters ask Tracy to wake up their fathers. Upon doing this, they accidentally find the Ghostbusters Instruction Manual, a book that will teach them what they need to be true Ghostbusters. As Tracy discovers that both Jake Kong Sr. and Eddie Spencer Sr. are not in their respective beds, he soon realizes a small trail of mist and explains to the boys that their fathers are gone and that a ghost was involved. Knowing that Primeval must be involved, the boys and Tracy take it upon themselves to go to the future and save their fathers. The boys then discover, by accident thanks to Eddie's clumsiness, a secret room within Ghost Command and realize that the room contains the secrets of what the Ghostbusters Instruction Manual explained, the Skelevator, a transformation chamber that will give them the tools that they will need to become true Ghostbusters.
Eddie, I think you've just stumbled on the secret transformation room. Let's get into uniform.
Let's go, Ghostbusters!
After receiving their uniforms for the first time, they meet Ghost Buggy, a talking car that can assume many forms of transportation and has the ability to travel through time. After formal introductions are said and done with, the Ghostbusters go off and time travel to the future to save it as well as their fathers from Primeval and his army of ghosts. But that was only the first episode, for the quest to find their fathers and stop Primeval's villainous schemes continued into the initial 4 episodes of the series' 5-episode story arc. And in this story arc, they would encounter new allies who would aid them in their quest. One of them being Futura, the bewitching Ghostbuster of the future. A beautiful sorceress from the year 2960 who uses the still remaining Ghost Command as her base of operations. Along with her telepathic powers, she's quite a powerful sorceress and a force to be reckoned with in her fight to stop any ghost threats that come her way. It is during the introduction of Futura that the junior Ghostbusters learn of an ancient stone tablet, which may contain clues to their father's whereabouts, and befriend Belfry, who warns them of Primeval's plans to take revenge on our heroes. Each episode after this discovery would have the team encounter various locations and figures of the past, some good and some evil, in order to obtain the pieces needed to complete the tablet and discover the true location of their fathers. All culminating in the 5th episode, The Ones Who Saved the Future. Thinking that the only way to rid himself of the Ghostbusters, Primeval decides to personally take care of the heroes by first capturing them and using his bone troller to turn them into his own personal ghost slaves. But not before revealing that he has the last piece of the stone tablet under his possession. Thanks to Jake's quick thinking and a helpful hand in the form of Footie, Merlin the magician's apprentice at the court of King Arthur that they met in the second episode, the final piece of the stone tablet was obtained and he was able to free his friends from the Bone Troller's Ghostarizer rays. Not only that, but Jake had also managed to switch the tusk that emitted the Bone Troller's various music-themed spells into teleporting them and those inside Primeval's haunt quarters back into the future. Once back in the future, Futura's time, our heroes discovered that their fathers had been locked up in the same mine that they originally confronted and locked away Primeval hundreds of years ago. Finally being reunited with their fathers, the final confrontation with Primeval would be the grounds for both Jake and Eddie to prove themselves of being true Ghostbusters. As the battle waged on, each member of Primeval's ghostly army would fall, becoming dematerialized and banished back to their ghostly dimension. As Primeval stood remaining, history would repeat itself and be in the favor of the heroes as Jake had managed to lure the ghostly wizard back into the vault in the mines once more, to be forever tormented by his fellow annoying roommate, Bradarat. Saving the future and ridding it of Primeval's curse throughout time, our heroes venture forth back home and make it just in time for Jessica Rae's live broadcast, proving once and for all that ghosts do exist and that the Ghostbusters are here to stay. But what about Primeval? Well, like all things locked up, they eventually find their way out. Oh, did you know? The original plan for the first 5 episodes, which form one long origin story, to be released theatrically as an animated motion picture. A year earlier, Filmation had released the first 5 episodes of She-Ra, Princess of Power, theatrically as He-Man and She-Ra, Secret of the Sword. However, these 5 episodes were not written until the series was in the middle of its production, so the animated movie idea was scrapped. Also, the first story that was actually written was the Statue of Liberty. Also, according to Lou Scheimer, he received a call from a horrified viewer who assumed Tracy the Ape from his Ghostbusters cartoon was a substitute for Ghostbusters' Winston Sedmore. Man, if only Google had existed then. There were also other influences involved in the creation of various characters in the Ghostbusters cartoon. Jake Kong Jr.'s overall appearance may be based on Rod Taylor's Time Traveler from the Time Machine film based on the science fiction novel by H.G. Wells. Jessica Rae's surname seems to be derived from Fay Ray, the original damsel in distress from the 1933's King Kong, where Ray portrayed a journalist who met the king of the jungle. It has, of course, been heavily implied that Tracy is a descendant of King Kong, though it is unclear if such references were made as a joke. The Haunter's overall appearance was derived from the stereotypical British safari hunter, and his facial appearance, mannerisms, and way of speaking were all derived from British comedian Terry Thomas. And Mystera's appearance is most notably based on Morticia Addams from the Addams Family. A toy line was also produced to coincide with the show by Schaefer Toys. The action figures had very good likenesses to their cartoon counterparts and included a small comic with each figure, which was a shortened version of the first 5 episodes of the show. The figures themselves were very hard to find until European and Latin supplies were made available in the United States. Unfortunately, the vehicles and playsets were even harder to find, to the point that the general collecting public believed that the Ghost Buggy and Ghost Command were never released. But thanks to the advent of eBay and other online stores, these items are now available for those who can afford them. A few Ghost Buggies and Ghost Commands show up every now and then and are considered very sought after collector's items. First Comics published a comic book miniseries in 1987 based on the show. Originally intended to be a 6-issue series, only 4 issues were published. The unpublished issues, along with reprints of the first comic series, were published in a 6-issue set in Germany in 1988. In the UK, numerous issues were reprinted in a hardcover annual called Filmation's Ghostbusters Annual 1987 by World Color Press. In an interview conducted with Bob Burns in 2007, he revealed that all 15 episodes were taped in 9 weeks every other day. That's literally 2 half-hour episodes per week. He also revealed that the show did well enough for a second season, coming in at number 2 in the ratings, behind the Shazam ISIS Hour. But Filmation decided to put more money into their number 1 program, thus the show was cancelled. Also, as you can see, minor changes occurred during the early development stages of this cartoon. For the most part, a good portion of the characters, most notably the Ghostbusters themselves, stayed loyal to the Roddy London and Barry O'Brien's original designs. Although other characters like Futura, Jessica Rae, and some of the various ghosts in the show changed slightly once the final product appeared across television, it's just fascinating to see how amazing their art design was and what type of talented individuals Filmation had under its wing. With their backs against the wall with countless and tedious lawsuits, Filmation finally backed down and quietly cancelled the show. Like its live-action 1975 counterpart, Filmation's Ghostbusters animated only lasted 1 season. As the lawsuits over their rights waged on, with Columbia Pictures' financial deep pockets being on the better side compared to Filmation's, it was abundantly clear that Filmation's Ghostbusters would always pale in comparison to what Deke and Columbia Pictures were doing. It also didn't help that kids turned in thinking that this was the show with those 4 guys with the proton packs they saw on the big screen, to quickly changing the channel upon being instantly disappointed in what they saw. Even so, there is a small following of people who love this series and even consider it to be the true Ghostbusters. Now for me, I really enjoyed this show and watched it whenever it aired on WPIX 11. Sure, I was confused at first, but not enough to change the channel or go on a childish tirade. Both real Ghostbusters and Filmation's Ghostbusters had things that made them stand out on their own. Sure, they shared the same name, but aside from that, both offered different experiences for those that watched them. In the end, Filmation's Ghostbusters is a forgotten secret of cartoon history, overshadowed by Ivan Reitman's film and subsequent cartoon show. If anything, Filmation's Ghostbusters was not really a heartless cash grab, but a spiritual successor to something that existed way before the 1984 movie. Despite its troubled history, rushed production, and cost-cutting animation methods, Filmation's Ghostbusters is one of the most fun series out there and contains that Filmation charm that no animation company has been able to duplicate for quite some time. Take a chance on it, and maybe, just maybe, you might like it too. Thank you so much, and remember, when it comes to cartoons we grew up with, that to truly appreciate something, you have to accept its strengths and its faults, no matter what they are, because when that happens, you can appreciate how amazing it was and how amazing it continues to be. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all next time.